ChoiceCenter Leadership University is where emotional intelligence meets extraordinary results. Founded in 1998 in Las Vegas, ChoiceCenter has empowered thousands of people around the world to unlock their full potential through experiential trainings and coaching. Here on EQU, we dive into the inspiring stories and transformative journeys from both famous faces and everyday heroes. Graduates who have harnessed emotional intelligence to have transformed their lives in ways that are nothing short of remarkable. From skyrocketing their careers to deepening relationships, balancing creative pursuits with focusing on health, finances, and family. Our guests share the real-world impact of EQ on living a life you author and love. Get ready to be inspired, challenged, and equipped with insights that can serve you to create radical results in your own life. If you're ready to dream, declare, and deliver, let EQU show you what's possible.
Welcome to EQU, the ChoiceCenter Leadership University podcast, where we dive deep into incredible stories of transformation through the power of emotional intelligence.
Today's episode is one you're absolutely going to be glad that you didn't miss it, because we're bringing a guest who is not only a visionary thinker, but is also more comfortable with embracing risk than anyone we've ever met. He thrives on it in the most inspiring ways.
You are getting me excited, Rob. But before you reveal who's joining us on the show today, let's remind our listeners to please like, subscribe, and follow EQU so you never miss an episode filled with life-changing insights. And if you love listening to this broadcast, we'd appreciate you taking a moment to give us a 5-star rating. It helps us reach more people and spread the transformational power of EQ.
Okay, our guest today is a legend. He's a household name in the poker world with 7 World Series of Poker bracelets, 2 World Poker Tour titles, and a place in the Poker Hall of Fame. He got that first time eligible. And Daniel Negreanu is also a 2012 graduate of our LV127. And he credits emotional intelligence with transforming not only his poker game, but also his personal and professional relationships. Outside of poker, Daniel is a social media fan favorite, YouTube content creator, and now host of his new podcast with his beautiful wife, Amanda. It's called The Mania, which has become an instant hit success. Daniel, welcome to EQU.
Well, thanks so much for having me. Who knew after all these years we'd be on a podcast? I don't even think those existed back then.
They did not.
Yes, welcome. We are so excited to have you. And we hope that, you're strapped in, because Robin and I have about 3 hours worth of questions to fit into this 60-minute broadcast for you. So let's dive in, and let's just start with your ChoiceCenter origin story. So what motivated you to enroll in LV127 in 2012, all those years ago, back in the day?
Yeah, so, when I was approached with it, I'd never heard of it. I didn't really know what it was. And I was actually on the golf course with my agent, who's a very close friend named Brian. And Brian is, as far as I was concerned, he's like the role model dad, good-looking dude, lawyer, beautiful wife, beautiful 3 boys. They're all like in good shape and they're good kids. So he was going through it. I think he was in the leadership portion. I don't remember exactly when. But he just kind of mentioned it to me. He's like, this thing might be cool for you. For me, luckily, my trust level with him is like a 10. If he says it's worthwhile, then I'm like, okay, I'll give it a shot. Because the way that I looked at things was I looked at ROI on something, and I was like, all right, what's my worst case scenario? I don't get much out of it. It's boring. It's dumb. I don't need it. Fine. What's my best case scenario? Well, what I actually saw as my best case scenario and the reality of it were 2 totally different things, because I was living small. I wasn't living and thinking as big as I could. And at that time, I was still among the best players in the world, if you will, but sort of in a stagnant place. And I thought, maybe I can get some motivation to work out. Like I said, very simplistic, almost vain personal goals that grew into something much bigger as I realized the juice, the real value in life was actually doing for others and using my platform to make positive change and so many things along those lines.
What were a couple of the biggest aha transformational moments that you experienced in discovery and breakthrough? What did you learn about yourself that surprised you, Daniel?
Well, here's the thing. I always saw myself as somebody who's a goal setter. I stand responsible. I get stuff done. I'm one of those types of people. That I know that especially within relationship, I was an absolute victim to the circumstance of, this girl that I fell in love with. And, things happened. And I had the story of all the things she did wrong or all the reasons. And, she was evil and I was good. And when I had the opportunity going through the course to sort of reshape that conversation and see it with a different eye, it won't be up to a blind spot. That allowed me, oddly enough, many years later, to find that same girl. And I kept the ring that I was going to give her back then. I kept it in my safe, and she came back into my life around 2019. And now the difference was I was mentally prepared to be her rock. I was there to be more understanding, all the things that I needed to do to grow. And there's no question that reshaping the conversation in terms of how the relationship went all happened at ChoiceCenter, and all allowed me to see her completely differently and open my eyes and arms to what's possible.
You had one of our favorite coaches in leadership, Rodney Taylor. He was LV127. Let me get that right. Torchbearer. What role did Rodney as your coach play in your success?
So I'm a big believer that you get the coach you're supposed to get. Good, bad, or ugly. If you're complaining about your coach, that's something to look at in your life. For me, I knew going in sort of where I stood in the world. And I was already successful. I had, what I needed to have. I didn't need a life coaching, if you will. And I certainly wasn't going to probably be all that receptive coming from arrogance of a high school kid who's coaching me. That would have been very difficult for me. So thankfully for me, I had Rodney, who I respected immediately. Came from the mortgage banking world, successful, well-spoken, carried himself with a level of respect, and and we became throughout it, very good friends. He ended up naming his son after me, his son Daniel, which I thought was pretty cool. And he was very impactful, especially in one exercise, which relates to my now wife, and really getting me to be open and vulnerable to what I was really experiencing, the pain that I didn't want to acknowledge. I thought I was past it. It was over. I'm good, but I had so much residual stuff still inside me that was affecting how I frankly saw all women. It transcended just her to I don't trust any of you people.
So he supported you with that. And what were the goals that you were working on back then with him? What was on your 100-day personal strategic plan?
Well, the big one was something that I had in mind to do even before I was going to ChoiceCenter. And it just so happened that our stretch was to raise $100,000 for the kids at St. Jude Children's Hospital. And my goal is always to create a poker charity event for them. And we were able to do that. In the first year, we raised about $400,000. It still continues to this day. And they've raised, I don't know, probably in the neighborhood of $3 million since we started that. So that was one. The other one was fitness related. They called me Six Pack, sort of an inside joke that that's the only reason I was there, was to get a six pack. And I might say this, it didn't happen while I was there, but I got a picture. I did get a six pack. Took a little while because, a six pack does. As soon as I got the six pack, I took the picture. I'm like, all right, I don't want to live like that anymore. Somebody get me a pizza and a beer so I can celebrate. But I wanted the picture. The most important one, I guess, for shaping, where I was in relation to my career, right? Like I said, I was sort of in a place of complacency, and one of the things you do when you go through the course is you come up with, 3 to 5 goals. And one of them I told him, I'd like to get back in the top 15 of the global poker index. I was probably 68th at the time. I said, that'd be a good goal, reasonable goal I can achieve. And Rodney sort of looked at me and goes, we don't do 15 around here, bro. It's like, this isn't a 15 kind of place. You're going to set the goal of reaching number 1. And of course, all my rails go up. I'm like, no, that's not realistic. That's not possible. There's so many reasons why that cannot be done. So I was already focused on all the things that everyone's very good at finding out all the reasons why they can't do something. But he challenged me, right? And the truth, I learned through that when you set a goal, if you set a goal that you're already on pace to achieve, you're not really reaching, you're not stretching as much as you should. So he's like, we're going to go for number 1. I was like, oh my God. Oh, stress, anxiety. I don't do that. That's too much, right? Well, I went through it back and forth, some with Robin herself, on some of the things that relate to poker. Because here's the thing with poker, my job, luck is involved. You can't control that. Certain things, I do control. If I say I'm going to run 5 miles a week, I can do that. That's on me. And with poker, I can't just say something that relies on luck. But I realized there was value in doing it anyway. And then shaping the plan, the strategic plan, the personal strategic plan, to do everything I could to get myself there, right? And then being less attached to the results, but more attached to the process. Did I do all the things that I set out to do? I did. Okay. Did I reach the goal? Maybe yes, maybe not. If not, what did I need to change? What did I need to adjust? how can I course correct so that I can get back to that goal? I can proudly say that within 3 months of completing the course, I made 3 consecutive finals. I won a World Series of Poker bracelet, about $3.5 million, and actually did reach number 1 on the GPI and kept it throughout the remainder of the year, which, again, like, I needed a little bit of luck, but sometimes I believe, like, the harder you work, the luckier you get. It's one of my favorite quotes.
Absolutely. Where were you? What number were you when you started on that journey and declared it?
I think I was right around number 68, and I said, let's get in the top 15, which is respectable, you know. And again, like I said, Rodney was not about setting, and I've learned that that's such a valuable mindset. That for me, I mean, I'm a big believer in goal setting. It's sort of how I was built before Choice, and now I learned how to refine the process in which I do it, right? So again, like I said, I don't set a goal that I already know I'm going to achieve. That's not doing much. I've set one that scares me a little bit, because the experience of fear, anxiety, excitement, they're all the same feeling. You just sort of get to choose, like, all right, I'm a little nervous about this one. That's exciting. So if you take it from that perspective, then I think, you know, you focus more on the exciting part rather than the fear and all the reasons why, you know, you're not going to accomplish it.
Absolutely. And what shifted about your play, your mindset? You said you worked with Robin a little bit. Like, what really compelled you to get from the 60s to number 1?
So one of the things was trusting myself. In poker, everyone plays a hand, and everyone else in the community decides whether or not this person is terrible, they're good, all this sort of stuff. But forget about what they do. Forget what they think. I'm going to do what I know works, okay? I'm going to do what I know works for me. And in addition to that, poker is a people game, okay? It really is a people reading game. One of the side benefits that I got through ChoiceCenter was when I got really vulnerable with people and close to people, I could see them. I could feel them. I could sense, right? When in poker, when they were bluffing, when they were nervous, when they were calm, right? That sounds hokey, but it really was a thing where when you really sit with someone and you're looking deep into their eyes, whatever the case may be, you're doing an exercise with them, you are connecting with that person on a deep level. I took that over. I remember some of the first times I went to go play poker, I could feel people's essence like right away, because I was looking at them and I didn't have any fear of looking away. You know, sometimes when people stare at you, most people, when you see someone staring at you, you kind of, you look away. This is weird. This is awkward. I don't want to do that. Why? Right? Especially at poker. There's such huge value in me being the one staring at you and you looking away. Now I'm dominating. Now I'm the boss of this situation. And in poker, again, it's a little bit of a cutthroat game. So every edge certainly adds up and counts.
What other foundational EQ learnings did you take away from 127 that you're still regularly accessing today, Daniel?
So I would say one of the big ones deals with sort of, everyone has attributes about them that when they're at their worst, they pop out. And it's usually a defense mechanism, right? So I was a little kid in school. I was tiny, and people would pick on me, right? And, I didn't like that. And one of the ways, when people pick on me, whether it's verbally or whatever, one of the ways I had to fight back was I can be very arrogant. I'm very good at being a condescending, arrogant jerk. Like, it's one of my skills, okay? So understanding, though, like what triggers that and realizing there's better ways to fight these battles. Now, listen, I'm human. It still comes out. Like, people push my buttons. It's going to come out. The difference now is I can laugh at myself about it and realize, like, you're being such an idiot. You totally just lost your cool, okay? That was dumb, and I move on quickly. Like, I'm able to shift out of it and ultimately realize that while I have, arrogance as part of my personality traits, I also possess humility too. And frankly, what connects to people is when I am coming from a humble place, when I'm coming from learning, when I'm coming not from judgment, because I'm also very good at that, okay? As a poker player, I'm given limited information, and I have to judge everything about how you think based on almost nothing. So you practice that for as many years as I have. That translates to, how you deal with relationship, like your wife, and, you're going to do things differently. Are you constantly in judgment of her and the way she does things differently? Or can you learn to be accepting, right, of, like, the fact that we're different and love anyway? Love not with, like, here's a big mistake I hear a lot of people, and I sort of maybe came from this. People in relationships say, if she would do this, this, and this, then I could love her. No. If you don't love her as she is, you will never love her, because there's going to constantly be this journey for you of, like, she needs to get better at this, and it'll never be enough, right? And it isn't that simple. People are who they are. If people grow and evolve, but if you don't love them where they're at at this moment, it's never going to happen.
Wow.
Genius and
Well,
so true.
We know that you famously made it back to number one after leadership, and an absolutely epic accomplishment, of course, in a real short window. Besides clear intention and mindset, what shifted about your play as a result of that EQ education?
Well, one of the things that I did, which we can't ignore, is I put in the work. I came up with a plan. What am I doing here? I'm playing at a high level against similar opponents. I need to know what they're doing. I need to spend the time to study. I need to study my opponents. I need to study theory. I need to practice. I need to put in the work, right? So it's one thing to have this idea, whatever you call it, the secret manifestation. I'm going to manifest. I'm going to have a Lamborghini and a beautiful life and this. And then you sit on the couch with a bag of Cheetos and you're like, this thing doesn't work, right? The way I saw Choice Center, or the way I see it, and when I have people attend, is it's essentially the gym for your mind, right? When you buy a gym membership, the lifetime or wherever you go, you buy the membership, you pay for it, right? You don't get muscles just for buying it. You have to go in and use the machines. You have to use the weights. You have to do all those things. Choice Center offers an opportunity to stretch yourself in a lot of different ways. But if you don't do the work, you're not going to get anything out of it. I'm just going to tell you that right now. You just sit in the corner and you're like, look, I'm perfect. Okay, if you're perfect, then why are you here, right? But let's get real. Let's get down brass tacks and talk about, what the real truth is. So, so for me, just foundationally, I think understanding just the value of the resources that I was given and utilizing them to, the best of my ability.
Yeah, a lot of people ask if this learning is sustainable. It's one of the questions we get a lot. What would you say is your experience with that? Do you feel like it's sustainable? And if so, what are some of the things that are the best to keep it alive?
Yeah, so I did it, 13 years ago, 12, 13 years ago, right? And I can honestly say that constantly, daily, practices or things that I learned while I was there play a role in my life in a positive way, okay? Now, if you find a self-help book that you find great, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, the 8th Habit, whatever it is for you, I think that's all great. The difference with those or any of these sort of one-day seminars is it can be fleeting, right? If you don't put in the practice. The way that Choice Center set up, you're doing a lot of work those first 2 weekends. You're digging deep. But you don't just leave it there. You're not done. It's not over. You have 100 days now, which, science is very clear on this. It takes about 90 days to develop a lifestyle habit. That's partly why I imagine the course is designed for around that amount of time. And you're going to put into practice all these things that you're learning so that it becomes a way of life. Not just a thing, I went to this conference, I got rah-rah'd up, and then by, a week later, you've forgotten everything. So I think constantly just using the tools. I'm always thinking of, what sort of goal setting I can do. I use practices that I learned at the table too. If my energy's off and I feel like I'm frustrated or angry, one of the things that I do, and I got this during the Masters actually, one of the practices that I use is to really sort of center myself is when I'm really upset about something, there's a feeling inside, right? We all feel it, right? You have 2 choices. You can ignore it, pretend it doesn't exist, and then you'll find 3-4 hours later, it's still there, and it's still affecting your mindset. Or I can internally vent, feel it. I cannot believe this dummy just played that hand, and he screwed me out of my championship, and blah, blah, blah. I can vent I can be as victim-y as I want internally, right? Then I'll take 3 deep breaths, center myself, just get present to what am I actually feeling right now? What are the physical sensations I'm having? Okay, my heart's racing, my feet are tapping. What do I need to be right now going forward? I need to be focused. I need to be dominant. I need to be really dialed in. And so I'll take the 3 deep breaths, like I said, and it doesn't happen instantly. It's not like, magically it goes away. But I promise you, for me, I've done this many, many times. Within 5 or 10 minutes, I've forgotten already about that hand. Again, that's so important. Whatever sport you're playing, whatever endeavor you're involved, golf is a good example. Tiger Woods was asked once, greatest golfer ever potentially. He hits his putts a little bit aggressively. He was asked by a reporter, he's like, why are you hitting so aggressively? You're not worried about the second putt. I'm not thinking about the next putt. I'm thinking about this putt. I'm going to do everything I can to make this one because I want to be present in the moment, not thinking about, if it doesn't work, I need to have a backup plan. That's the mindset of fear and scarcity where you're like, what if it goes wrong? Instead of no, do everything you can to give this opportunity to the best you can. And usually results come from that.
I love that. And for the players out there, what percentage of the game is managing your emotions? You're in a lot of high stakes situations and you got a lot of pressure on you in the game. So how does just managing all that and your EQ play into your success on the table?
Well, so I'm a pretty emotional guy by nature. You'll see a lot of the younger players today. They're very robotic. They try to be like a robot. I don't do that. I allow myself to feel what I feel. And I feel that allows me to tap into intuitiveness and, a sense of feeling how other people are feeling and all this stuff. I don't try to block that out. Ultimately, I got to be me. Ultimately, if I think of like one of the biggest, most fundamentally powerful things I got is be authentic, like fully authentic, good, bad, and ugly, like I said. And listen, I'm going to have, because anybody in a public role, you're going to have those that adore you, love you, and some that hate you. And I feel I'm comfortable with that, because another quote that I love is, in order to avoid criticism, say nothing, do nothing, and be nothing. And that's just not the way I live my life. So I'm going to be in your face a little bit at the poker table, engaging, and I feel like that's my comfort zone, and it's maybe not theirs, which benefits me. So yeah, emotionally, the biggest thing that I got was to not allow something bad to have me dwell about the past. I'll give another example, just real quick. In a poker tournament, let's say Robin, she ended the day with $1 million in chips. Corrine, you ended the day with 50,000 in chips, right? Robin is doing great. You're not doing so good, okay? Well, 2 hours in, Corrine, you go on a crazy rush. You have 300,000 now. Robin, she had a bad start. She's at 300,000 also. So you're exactly at the even place. Now imagine you're equally skilled at poker. Who am I betting my money on right now? I'm betting my money on the person on the upswing. I'm betting on you, Corrine, because you're excited, you're happy. Robin is stuck in, but I had $1 million before. 300,000 is a great amount of chips. You're both doing well, but your mindset, Corrine, is going to be positive and happy. Robin, woe is me, I'm about to go broke. And I promise you, betting on the person on the upswing, you can make a lot of money doing that.
Yeah, because I'm in the momentum of feeling, I'm in that juice, the confidence, all that. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can see how it plays in a lot, being able to read people.
Into everything.
If you were to identify one or two things that really has you be consistently successful and stand out from the rest, is it these types of things, or there's some other things that you do that maybe other people haven't tapped into themselves?
Yeah, there is a big one. And it's really essentially the crux of what EQ is, and it's self-awareness. Self-awareness combined with the humility to take an honest look at yourself, okay? Here's the thing about poker. It can play tricks on your mind where you think you're just unlucky. Everybody's just unlucky except these few guys who win. They're just lucky. No. If, your results are not there, there's two ways you can go about it. You can be a victim and complain about your bad luck. What's the value in that? People go, hey, poor you. God, it's annoying talking to this person. All they complain about is their bad luck, right? Or you can start to look introspectively like, what am I missing? What could I possibly be doing better? So throughout my career, over 30 years, I've always been willing to, rather than scoff at the young, learn from them. The self-awareness to say, okay, you know what? Some of these things these kids are doing right now are taking advantage of me. I need to figure out how to counter that. If you live in a world where everything you do is correct and you can never learn anything, you're going to be surpassed by all those that are continuing to look for ways to innovate and to create new strategies. And I remember learning that lesson, frankly, in my early 20s. When I first came to Vegas, there was a couple world champions, and I'm this 22-year-old punk kid, and they were scoffing at the kids, and they're so aggressive, and they play dumb. I'm looking at these two, and I'm like, I destroy you, okay? You're like taking candy from a baby. I'm killing you right now because you aren't opening your mind, and that's why a lot of people from my era faded. They were not able to keep up because you sort of get to a place where you think you know everything. Everybody else is learning. They're using new tools, software, artificial intelligence, all these kind of things. And for me, to take on a couple coaches who were not as accomplished as I was, they don't have the attributes, but they understand how to use these tools. So I said, well, let me hire them to teach me. And I think that's a requirement, frankly, for longevity in poker.
Well, we've been talking about many ways of being: empathy, resilience, managing pressure and all the stress, all key aspects of emotional intelligence. So anything further, Daniel, on how these EQ tools show up for you and how you play?
Yeah, I'd say one other thing is, in order to be good at poker, you have to be very confident in what you're doing. You have to feel like you're the best player at the table. When you are hesitant and you are, coming from fear, you're going to miss out on some stuff. You always want to feel dominant. And one of the ways to do that is to improve your mindset, improve your ability to get there. And I think one of the drawbacks I think a lot of players have is they have the skill set, they have the knowledge, they don't have the confidence in themselves to pull the trigger when the trigger needs to be pulled. Now, there's a big risk here that you need to take. Well, do you trust it? No. Maybe I'll just not do it, and I'll just avoid the situation rather than coming in like a tiger and saying, no, I've studied this spot. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to go down fighting. If it doesn't work, who cares? Now, if it doesn't work out, this is where you're introspective after the fact. That's another attribute that's super important when it comes to coaching. Whether you're coaching yourself or you're coaching others, is you set up a plan, okay? You got the game plan. This is the game plan we've decided is going to work. You try to hit the goal, you don't hit the goal. All right, well, let's take a look at the game plan, okay? Did you do everything? Yeah. All right, so we need to adjust the game plan. Let's see which ways, we can improve next time. So with poker, you play a hand, you try something, and you're like, yeah, that didn't work. I don't think that's maybe as good as I thought it was. So you can't be stuck. And this is correct. You realize, like, well, maybe there's a better way. And that's the thing, opening your mind to possibility, which is, I think, again, a very prevalent aspect of Choice Center, is opening up possibility to things you don't believe could be true. And a lot of that comes from when we're very young, a lot of thoughts we have about what is possible and what isn't. And a lot of it's just a story. It's not true.
A story we tell ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And you've been talking about possibility, and tell us about a time when reading one of the players, someone's emotions, helped you with a really big, significant hand.
Well, one of the things I use at poker is I use like a deflection tactic. Okay. Generally speaking, when people are comfortable and relaxed, you get more information from them. If someone's just sitting there stoic, they're not going to be as expressive. All I tend to do is I might get myself in a situation where the person's sitting over here. I won't be looking at them, but I will be. I see them at the corner of my eye. I start talking to the dealer, and I'm like, why do I do this to myself? That was so dumb. I should have not even called the hand, but now I'm here, and I'm looking over there to get a reaction, and I see a giggle, and I see a laugh, okay? Then I turn, I say, you know what? What if he only does that? That smile goes to, oh. Finally, he realizes he could be in some trouble, and that was enough for me in the moment. And I have a lot of tricks like that. Not all in my life, learned at Choice Center specifically, but just in general, like, the ability to read people or empathize with people is something that is a skill that sharpens throughout the whole process.
You were saying that some of those things stem from your childhood. What did you learn in the training that the 9 or 12-year-old version of Daniel was still running the operating system?
I think we all have some self-limiting beliefs, and mine kind of it's so silly, really, because like I said, I was small. I was the shortest kid in my school. My brother was 6 foot in the 6th grade, 6'3", something. My father was tall. Mother, on the shorter side. And my dad, he was an electrician. He could build anything. And my brother was like that too. They could do things with their hands. It's amazing how, like, the smallest of comments sticks with a young boy. I was a young boy, and my mother asked me to go open the screen on the door. And I was screwing around with it and couldn't get it. And she's like, oh, you're all thumbs. You can't do anything with your hands. Something silly like that, right? Well, to this day, it stuck with me that, like, if I needed to put together a cabinet or something, I can't do that. Like, of course I can do that. I'm an intelligent human being. I can put things together, but it's kind of funny when you see my wife, she's like 5 foot and 100 pounds, and we got her with the wrench and the tools and stuff, and she's underneath the thing fixing it, and I'm there like, burp, burp, But yeah, like, I realized that was, something that was just a story that I told myself, and, it came from something as small as a comment that my mother made, and I guess an insecurity in general about, my strength as a male. Can I do that man stuff, if you will?
Love that. We all have those silly things that follow us. Yeah.
Daniel, when you won your 7th bracelet this summer, I was there for quite a few hours. I didn't get to stay till that final moment. You went pretty late. I remember you got very emotional the first time I saw the play. What were you experiencing in that tournament, and what was all that emotion about? I remember you holding that bracelet, and your face. You and I have been friends a long time now. It was significant emotion.
It was a couple things, right? First of all, for those that don't know, this was the Poker Players Championship. This is the one tournament I would have wanted to win over any other except maybe the main event. So, and it's a grueling tournament. You're playing for 5 days against pretty much only professionals, top pros, 13 hours every day, grinding, showering maybe, and just blood, sweat, and tears. And every decision, especially late, is so crucial and so impactful. Your brain is going through so many things, and it's very taxing, And I remember, as I got to heads up, and I realized this is going to happen. I'm going to win. Looking at the crowd, because I'm a lone wolf. I generally travel on my own. I don't bring friends and family to stuff. I do my thing. I get it done. But this moment was special, partly because, you were there for a while, as you said, Robin. But the crowd, there was a huge crowd, of people that were all rooting for me. And there was one in particular who was there rooting for me, who hadn't been given an opportunity to see me at a fountain. It was my wife, who had a rough 1.5, 2 years of poker, and it was tough. I was just unlucky. And it is what it is, because that'll happen too. And she had to go through it too, emotionally and physically and all those things. So to share with her, that probably put me over the top, and just to see the positive feedback. Because like I said, listen, sure, I'm human. It's nice to have people support you. Sometimes haters can be annoying too. It's just nice to get that positive feedback from complete strangers. And I spent probably an hour and a half after winning, signing autographs, taking pictures, and making sure that every little moment that I had with those people that stayed, they felt like, not that they got their money's worth per se, but one of the things I learned too is just that when you're in my position, you might meet 300 people and have good rapport with 299 of them. One of them, you didn't see them. They were on the side. You walked away. They didn't see you. And then, of course, you're a monster. And they write on the internet how, oh, my God, he's a jerk. He didn't say hi to me. So I make it a point to try to make sure that I do the best I can to make each person I meet feel special in that quick moment.
I think that's one of your amazing strengths. You make everybody feel special. I've been at a lot of games with you, wins and losses, and you just have that energy about you, like I care about everybody here. You're amazing about that. I'm going to shift over to 2018. You hosted a masterclass called Daniel Negreanu Teaches Poker on the series with that same name. What kind of feedback did you get from the fans and the players about that class? I think I remember, weren't you the number one position for a long time in that?
Okay, so for those who don't know, you probably have heard of it, masterclass.com. They are the biggest, the best, the most high-level sort of training site in the world. They have people, if you want to learn how to cook, you learn from Wolfgang Puck or Gordon Ramsay. You want to learn tennis, you learn from the Williams sisters. You want to learn basketball, Steph Curry. Oh, you want to learn how to act or sing? Yeah, Christina Aguilera. All these top names in their field. So when they approached me, I was honored to do a course with them. And I can honestly say that the level of production that they put into these things is a level I've never seen in anything else I've done. And yeah, USA Today did a piece rating the top 10 masterclasses, and mine was number one over all these great things because we really put a lot of work into it. I wanted to make sure that, people got their money's worth, even though it's not a lot of money, it's actually quite cheap to take the course. I wanted to teach people how to critically think about poker, and, maybe that expands past poker as well.
For sure. Outside poker, you have a phenomenal love story, a heart-wrenching love story. Tell us how you and Amanda came to be who you are for each other today.
Yeah, so there's history there. When I met her, she was a young, blonde, Southern Belle firecracker. Party, woo-hoo, she was a lot. And I was smitten right off the bat. And I was 10 years older than her. And at a different stage in my life, I'm like, all right, I'm ready. Let's do the marriage and kids things. She was not. She was 21. Living in Hollywood, living in life in the fast lane, and I offered a stable picket fence type life that she wasn't ready, to take on. So things didn't work out. I even bought a ring. I never gave it to her, but I bought a ring, as I mentioned, and we went our separate ways. But it stung, because I really felt like she was the one. She lived her life. She was engaged. She moved back to North Carolina. I lived with someone for 4 years. We sort of went our separate way, but we still once in a while sort of said, hello, how you been? We kept in touch here and there. And luckily, she came back in 2019 to host a poker show because that's what she was into. She interviews, does radio, TV. She actually went to North Carolina and she was doing the morning show there. And she came back and I was like, all right, well, I didn't expect anything. I was like, let's just have some fun maybe. I don't know. I didn't expect, based on my history with her. And we went to dinner and, we're both different people now. Right. And I really got to see it with her because she shared something with me that she didn't share with anybody at the time. And that was the game changer for me. She shared with me that she was diagnosed bipolar. And then it all made sense. A lot of the ways in which she was being, the highs, the lows, the depression, the crazy mania, all that sort of stuff which oddly enough is where meeting the podcast comes from, is, her manic episodes. And like, I started to see her differently, in a vulnerable way. And, I sort of realized, someone mentioned this to me, like things I did when I was being coached by Rodney was I sort of did a write-up of what my dream girl was. What does she look like? What does she do? Just kind of fantasize, imagine. So much of that woman was her. So I'm searching for someone like her rather than just being like, okay, maybe you should choose her. And so I think, frankly, if we didn't have that conversation and again, this is what sort of proves that vulnerability is the power that binds us. If she didn't get vulnerable and honest and open with me, we wouldn't have been married, I don't think. I would have had all those reservations based on our history of remembering when she was a young firecracker. So shortly after, New Year's hit, it was only a couple months, I still had that ring in my safe. I never got rid of it. And I thought, well, what better time? And so I gave her the ring on New Year's Eve. We were married in May of that year. And it was odd because that's sort of when COVID hit, with the pandemic. And that's a real test for any relationship. And for us, it just made us stronger because we spent all day together every day. We were not leaving the house, being good soldiers, if you will. And we really sort of found a rhythm that really worked for us. And I grew closer and closer to her, like every day. Since we've started this podcast, it's kind of our own little therapy session where each week we get together, we talk about a wide-ranging amount of topics. We get to share with people, and it's good for us. It's something that we get excited about, and it keeps the spark and keeps things fresh. So I live my life now. One of the primary goals is to make her happy. Because she deals with what she deals with. She deals with moods and emotions that can be great one minute, off the next. Luckily for me, partly thanks to, I'm a rock, and I get to be that rock for her. And she's so good with communication that if she is off, right, she lets me know. She's like, I'm in a mood. I'm like, okay. Sometimes she needs to isolate. It's fine. It's actually kind of easier in a way because I never wonder, like, what did I do? She's so upset. What did I do? Nothing. Sometimes it's just a hormonal change, a mood change, whatever the case may be. She's great at communicating it. And I learned one valuable thing. It was actually a book that Robin recommended before I did the course, The 4 Agreements. And one of the agreements is very valuable. It's don't take anything personal. Don't. Okay? Whatever it is, that's somebody's opinion. And don't make assumptions also. That's another thing that we do often. You get a weird look from somebody and then you start to make a story about they don't like you, da-da-da. And I've learned to go, whenever I've had those moments, I think, I don't know. I think this person might have a thing with me. I go to them like, hey, I'm just wondering, are we good? Or, did I do something that upset you? If so, I'd like to have a chance to acknowledge it, maybe apologize if that. And often I find it was just a bad read on my part. And they're like, no, it's not that at all. So rather than live through this period of uncomfortableness with a person, I squashed it in the butt. But if we did that more often, I think it would have solved a lot of relationship problems for sure.
Just mentioned the new podcast, The Mania. It does pull back the curtain to share your unfiltered reality of living with somebody with bipolar disorder. So what was it that inspired the two of you to say, hey, let's put this out there. Let's make this a podcast and share?
Well, when we met, part of our chemistry was on camera where she was doing interviews. So we had that chemistry. We had a good flirty vibe on camera. And we talked about doing a sports show. We talked about doing a poker show. There's a lot of interest for people that they wanted to create a show around us. And we thought, why don't we just do it ourselves? Make it easy, make it about us, and also be so open-ended that we can go any vertical we want. She's super interested in, she watches the Netflix documentary. She likes crime dramas and, she's into the culture gossip. We did an episode on OJ, we talked about the Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni stuff. So she has her interests. I have mine. We meld them together and we sort of riff off each other. And the conversations go into, sometimes it's storytelling. And we don't really keep a script. It's just very loose. We have a few ideas, some of the things we want to talk about, but we let the conversation kind of go wherever it goes. And here's another thing I learned too. From listening to Joe Rogan one time, who's the most successful podcaster in the world. He talked about when he started his podcast. He just did it because he liked it. It was fun. He didn't have any ideas of it being huge. And many people would tell him, listen, you're only going to listen to 3 hours of this stuff. You need to shorten. You need to do this. You need to have these types of guests on, not these types of guests. He's like, I'm just going to do what I love. And I enjoy doing it. And I'm a big believer that if you just do things that you love, you're way more likely to be successful than if you're trying to cookie cut or something. So we do this because we enjoy it. And if other people love it, that's awesome too. But that's not the crux of why we're exercising this creative outlet. A lot of people say that, we've helped them out in a lot of ways, because a lot of people have someone who's bipolar in their life, one way or the other, in their family or otherwise. And it gives them a deeper understanding I think, too, when we do talk about that. But that's not all we talk about. It's a lot of fun, too. We just kind of cover a wide variety of topics.
Well, you're both so totally authentic. And authenticity is something that just draws people in immediately. And then to have a couple that's so authentic, she gets real sassy with you and you handle it beautifully. And your chemistry just flows all over the show. And that's what I love about it. It doesn't matter about the subject matter. It's how the two of you are bouncing.
The sassy is sexy to me. And it's a platform that I think I'm naturally good at. And Brian actually said to me, listen, I got some news for you. She's just as good as you are. And I'm like, I know. It's great. I need somebody to challenge me. That sass is attractive. I don't want to push over. I'm not looking to be in a relationship with somebody who I control. You do not control this woman. Okay? It is not possible. It's not on the table. She fights for herself. She's feisty. She's tiny, but she's feisty. And I think that shows through when we go back and forth. We talk about stupidest things about her leaving ice cream in the fridge and the fact that I'll eat it even after the due date. We talk about all kinds of stuff. And it's just every relationship, you have your little fights that you fight, and we do them on the podcast.
I think it's fabulous. You make being real attractive and great role models, the both of you. Over all the years that we've been together, we've repeatedly watched you and your platform, your celebrity that's for greater good, Daniel. So whether it's to support specific charities, which we've done that together and you do a lot of it, whether it's make a difference for other people in many, many ways, what impact do you and Amanda look to make by being together on this show, sharing this mental health journey?
So Amanda's uniquely qualified, not only because she's somebody who experiences bipolar, but she's also got her degree. She just finished her degree, and she's always had a genuine soft spot for those that are homeless, because she lived in LA for a while. She was right on Skid Row, and she would talk to these people. She'd walk by them and understand the struggles, and she understands that the majority of these people are dealing with either some type of untreated mental illness or some sort of drug addiction, and they're not getting the care that they need. So part of the reason that she wanted to get her degree was so that she could help those people. Not for money, free of charge, if you will. So that's one way. We're obviously currently in the process of trying to have a child of our own. And I imagine instill a lot of the values that we both have into a child and sort of complete the family unit, if you will. But I think for her, she's very empathetic. She wants to help people. And ultimately, too, it's raise awareness about the stigma, right? I have a friend who played for the Golden Knights named Robin Lehner. He was the goalie who replaced Florian. He's also bipolar. And he said in an interview, he's like, I wish I didn't tell anyone, because he was judged for it. He wasn't able to get the contracts, even though his numbers, his statistics were better than other goalies that were signing 5, 6, 7-year deals. He'd get 1 year. Nobody really wanted to put a lot of faith or trust into him because of what he dealt with. And I mentioned it too. She didn't really want to share that because people ultimately judge. Like, oh, they're crazy. I'm like, okay, who is it? Oh, a little crazy sometimes, And so I think normalizing to a certain degree those that have this sort of thing and really understanding how to be with them. The hardest thing to do, I think, with somebody who's bipolar is if you take things personal, you're going to be disappointed quite often. Because there are times when a bipolar person just needs to be alone. You text them. They don't text you back. They might not text you back for a week, 2, a month, or whatever. They're going through their stuff. You just need to be understanding, loving, and realize it's not about you. It's not about you, man. They're dealing with their own stuff. When they're ready, they'll come out of their shell.
That old mission of focus out. That's what you're saying. Well, so far with the show, what's the feedback you're hearing?
Along the lines of what you said, I think a lot of people appreciate the authenticity. And that's one of the things I admire about her. She doesn't care at all what people think about her. She just says what she believes and very open in that regard. And people have enjoyed it. It's a new podcast. We're 12 episodes in now. The audience is pretty stable and it's building. And like I said, people I think will appreciate her talking and being so vulnerable and open and authentic about what she deals with. And pulling punches. There's nothing we hide. We're talking about our journey to have IVF, and create a child through that. And I think that relates to a whole ton of people. And so we document that journey. And I think just that alone, it's an opportunity once a week for people to just sort of sit in on me and Amanda's therapy session we have with each other.
I think you're going to have a massive impact, and it's incredible. You can't wait for the next episode because the two of you just have fantastic energy, but again, are just so like real, authentic, and tell it like it is. And no matter what you're talking about, if it's IVS, the Malibu fires, like whatever it is, like it's just really cool to see the way that you two interact, and you can see the type of relationship that you have. And we know the whole backstory, so it's even cooler for us to listen to it. But speaking of your IVF journey and making some mini-me's, what is it about that IVF journey so far that you could share as what to expect, or what are some of the things you don't see coming in that journey?
If you're the male, your job is very, very easy. You spend a few minutes and they get a sample from you. That's your job. That's pretty easy. But in addition to that, I think your job is more important than that. And that really comes down to moral support, because for Amanda, what she goes through, and for any woman who knows who's gone through it, it's emotional. It's, your hormones are just all through the roof. And, essentially the process expands your ovaries. So you're in a lot of pain. You're jabbing yourself. You're doing all this stuff. So for me, I remember just thinking, focus out. Like every morning, whether I needed to go or not, I was going with her. And I wanted to just be there for her. And I really put my life just for that period on the back burner. Like my personal goals, my gym, whatever. I'm just going to focus on this and her because it's really important. And, she wanted to document the whole process. And I think me being there with her is good for our relationship. It's good for her and made it a little easier on her. People have gone through it, and they haven't had success. So I think for some, if you have elevated expectation, there could be some disappointment, but it's worth it. It's worth it if it's something that you both think will enhance your life.
Beautiful. You mentioned earlier that your coach Rodney named his baby after you, baby Daniel. Have you thought about baby names after?
I have a name. I can't share it, but we both have a name we both love. And both of us would choose this one name. It's a good name. It's got some history, but I can't tell you any more than that because we're going to keep it secret. We don't want anybody stealing the name.
Well, keep us posted. Yeah. You've been great today about sharing like your love life in your, journey through choice. Did you find that, EQ had an impact on any of your other family relationships or friendships?
One big one. One really big one. Like I sort of shared earlier on the podcast, one of the places I come from is judgment. And one of the people that I judged was my brother. Big, strong, 6'3", 220 guy. And I focused so much on all the things that were different about him than me, things that I saw as less than, all the negatives, right? And it's amazing because I sort of reshaped that relationship and realized, you know what? A lot of people say, I'd take a bullet for you. It's just lip service for the vast majority of people. But there's one person in the world that I know actually would, and it's my brother. He would jump in front of a bullet for me. I believe that. I know that. I've seen it in action. Anytime someone's, come at me, and he loves me more than anything. And I was able to sort of connect with him on a different level, where I left the judgment behind, sort of almost like a blank slate. Where well, this man is very sensitive, strong, loves me unconditionally, is a good person. And I found that without him actually having to change anything about himself, the relationship shifted because of I shifted. He didn't go. It wasn't like he was going through choice. I was. But the fact that I was going through this changed our relationship, both for him and me. We became much closer. He saw me differently as well. I was more interested in what's going on in his life and, the little things that mattered to him. I was a better listener and just connecting and more loving and accepting of him. And so again, one of the cool things about it is whether, the people around you go through the training or not, they will be impacted by it because you've shifted. And often people say you shift and like, what the heck is he smoking? Why does he seem so kind and happy and all these things all of a sudden? And often that's kind of why you see those that go through it, their friends and family end up going through it too. And a big reason for that is they see the evidence, they see the changes, the positive changes in people that they love and trust. And so they want that for themselves, which makes sense.
Well, I'm going to go back to 2015 when I first got to really learn about your brother. Your documentary is called Kid Poker, and it was released, and it showed how you became the person we all knew at that point, and you're talking about now. What impact did that documentary have on your life? I know about your brother, amazing, and who else? What else?
Well, I think the documentary you mentioned, Kid Poker, I think for most people, well, actually, overall, it was well received. I think people got to see a different side of me. With a public figure, when you see them playing poker, you're just seeing them in their element or whatever. Seeing the backstory, where I come from, my roots, what makes me tick, again, good, bad, and ugly. You're being vulnerable and open and honest. And that's kind of where I was going with that. But we weren't pulling any punches. We weren't hiding anything. And I think, again, people genuinely appreciate that. So it was very, very well received, you know. It originally aired on Netflix for a few years, and I believe it's on Vimeo or YouTube now. I don't know how all that legalese works, but yeah, no, it was, I'm glad I did it.
Well, you know this because I think you get DMs and messages from people in different ways. I wrote a stretch for leadership where people watch your documentary and then they answer questions. And of course, that allows them and supports them to look at their own families. It's really one of our most popular stretches.
Yeah. I think one of the things that speaks to people is when you see it, I'm sharing, and they do a good job with the illustration and the cinematography of it, is share like the early part of my career was a failure, followed by another failure and another failure. And it was constant failure, frankly. Failure, rebuild. Failure, reassess. Failure, regroup. Having that sort of fight in me, you know, that I was going to get it right. And I was trying on new things and I was trying to improve upon, you know, my skill set, if you will. And I needed to go through that. And some of the most successful people in the world are that because they failed a whole bunch of times, but they kept on going until they got one right. Most people are so afraid to fail, they don't give themselves a chance to succeed.
Incredible, incredible. So we have a segment that as we come into the final minutes of the show, we call the EQ Quickfire, where we fire a bunch of questions at you. Are you ready to play the EQ Quickfire?
Oh boy, let's go. I love games.
If we were to have visited your bedroom as a kid, what would we have found on your walls around the room?
Very specifically, we would have found the Sunshine Girl every day in the Toronto newspaper. It was a girl in a bikini all over the walls. In addition to, oddly, I was a numbers geek, and I kept the stats of the Toronto Blue Jays from the newspaper. I would clip it and put it all over and check how many games back there were. So it was a combination of that and women. I was a kid. What do you expect?
I love it.
For our students who are currently in their 100 days of leadership and in the heart of being held accountable to achieve all the goals that they declared, what coaching would you give them as someone who's 13 years outside of that experience?
If you're not feeling challenged, you're not working hard enough. It's supposed to be challenging. That shouldn't be a surprise to you. And ultimately, I think one of the most important things is this. There are probably moments where you're like, I don't really want to do this. You're normal. That's fine. That's a normal thing. But like what I would say then is find your anchor, which is why are you there in the first place? What is your vision? What is your end goal? What is the whole purpose of doing this? And does it still matter to you? Is that not important to you? Is that not worth going through things you might not like, you might not be enjoying, whatever the case may be? Progress and growth is not supposed to be easy. When you go to the gym and your muscles get sore, they rebuild bigger and stronger. And it's the same with something like this. So ultimately, instead of focusing on the minutia of the day-to-day, keep your eye on the prize. Remember why you're there in the first place. And keep your eye on the prize, yeah.
You mentor a lot of people in poker. For the poker fans who might be listening, what's the biggest mistake people make at the table? What should they be working on?
Well, again, it depends on the level, skill set-wise. But I think, no, you want to focus on the process. I'll give you an easy example. You have a 2 and a 7. That's the worst hand you can get. And then the next cards come out 7, 7, 2. And someone says, man, I should have played. Do you really think you should have played a 7 and a 2? I think that's a good winning strategy because it won this one time. Wake up. No, focus on the process rather than the results.
What is a book or a podcast, either one, that inspires you in some way about the way you live your life?
No question about it. It's the book that you recommended to me. It's a very simple read. You can read this in a day. It's like 140 pages. It's The 4 Agreements by Daniel Negreanu. 4 simple agreements. Number 1, be impeccable with your word to yourself and to others. These are four ideas of like how to live a good life. Imagine you lived a life, right, where everything you said you were going to do, that you wanted to do, you did. That's pretty powerful. You're going to live a life of purpose and you're going to be on the ball. And again, that's to other people and to yourself. Whether it's as simple as saying, I'm going to be somewhere at 7 p.m., if you're there at 7:05, you're late. You didn't keep your word. So even on a minuscule level, keeping your word in every situation, and you're going to screw up. Sometimes you don't beat yourself up because that's number 4. Number 2, don't take anything personal. Just whatever people say, that's their opinion of you. It's not fact, it's not real. 3rd is don't make assumptions. We talked about that. And number 4, this one ties it all together. It's do your best. You say you're going to do all these 3 things. You're going to screw up all 3 of those. As long as you're constantly doing your best. Let's say, for example, if you're being impeccable with your word, you say, I'm going to run 10 miles every week. Okay. Well, you break your leg. Do your best, understand that, okay, I have a broken leg. Maybe I'll do something else with my arms or whatever the case may be. It's not an opportunity to go roll with me. It's an opportunity to adjust, right? But just do your best. And if you're always focused on doing your best with all those three things, keeping them in mind, I think it's the recipe. It's so simple. But it's a recipe for success in life.
Every person that we've talked to, and none of these have come out yet, we've just been banking them and we're about to release them all, has said that that's their number one book. How crazy is that?
It's the simplicity, I think. Most people don't want like a Bible-length book on how to live their life. It's a lot to take in, where it's like just simple principles, basic principles, and you can extrapolate from and take however you want. But I think that's easily digestible, especially in today's society where a lot of us have short attention spans. This book is just like, boom, simple.
Yeah, never, ever lose track of that book. Interesting enough, Don Miguel released that book during LV1, the very first course, and we got to have it. It had come out. It was our first reading assignment, and it's become the classic number one. And then Don Miguel had a car accident right about then, and he was recovering here in Vegas, and we have a mutual friend. And I wanted him to come and talk to our teenagers, our teens. And a friend gave me the phone number and asked him permission. And I called him and he said, meet me for lunch tomorrow. And I did. And he brought his girlfriend and he said yes instantly. He said, tell me what you want to ask me. I said, I want to ask you if you'll come into the training room and work with me with our teenagers. He said, yes. When do we start? Like just the nicest guy in the world. And because he was in recovery, he stayed around for a long time and he came to a lot of events and signed a lot of books, signed his name a lot for a lot of graduates. So I love the sustainability of what he's done. One more question from me, Daniel. What do you think is the most misunderstood about poker professionals? And maybe specifically start with yourself.
So when you think of poker, people associate that with gambling. What is gambling? Okay, let's define what gambling is. And you'll realize that you're all gambling in different ways. Like the most obvious analogy, you play the stock market. What are you doing? You're betting on certain stocks to go up and others will go down. You open up a restaurant. You think you've got food people are going to pay for. You'll be able to make a living. So you take the risk. You open this place. You don't know if it's going to work. You get married. So every choice you make really is a risk. And poker is no different than that. And I think like the misconception is that, we're just these wild, crazy gamblers, when in reality, very logical thinkers, probability-based, much like you would dissect the market. That's what we're doing. We're looking for the edges. We're looking for the positive EV, we call it, which is expected value. So it's a very analytical game. And I think a lot of people always ask this question, like, you say, well, how much did you win? So they will, let me say, but how much do you lose? I'm like, well, where do you think I got the money to lose in the first place?
Good point.
Do you practice any daily disciplines?
Physically, working out is something that, I just built my dream gym that we have here at the house. And that's something that I'm mindful of. That's something that I learned about a little later in life, probably 37, 38. I'm 50 now, and I try to stay active there. And the other daily discipline is just literally thinking about ways in which I can make my life happy.
I want to know, what is your EQ superpower?
I think my EQ superpower that I learned is how to listen to the conversation underneath the conversation, which means somebody saying something. What do they mean underneath that? I remember, give you an example. I was talking to somebody who was quite obese. He was, 500 pounds-ish, right? And we were just talking, and he was considering maybe doing choice. And I said, so do you have a girlfriend? You looking for that? He's like, oh, no. I don't want none of that. And I heard underneath what that meant. He did not want it. He didn't think he was worth. I felt it. He didn't want that. He didn't feel worthy of it. It wasn't even on his radar, the possibility of it. But he saw himself. There was a lot of self-loathing going on. Like, I'm not worthy of this. So I heard him, and I didn't call him out on it or anything. I just made a mental note. As he spoke, I said, okay, this man's hurting underneath, and that triggered something in him. So again, I don't think it's appropriate to sort of call people out and judge them for it, but like hearing underneath what people are saying and getting a sense of what the true meaning is, or the crux of it is, and where it comes from.
Daniel, we like to wrap up each episode inspired by the journeys of our guests and offer our graduates and listeners an EQ stretch challenge to complete before the next episode. And we would love you to design one for us.
Here's one that I like that was impactful for me. Call somebody that you know, maybe haven't spoken with, whatever. Just call somebody you think it's important to, that maybe you have certain judgments about, some things about them that you're not necessarily a fan of, if you will. And try this exercise where you experience them as a completely blank slate, like you're meeting them for the very first time. You've never met this person. And you have a conversation with them, get to know them, this person. Then let us know, what did you learn about this person to be true that you didn't know before? Because I remember doing an exercise like that, and I saw this one girl, and I thought of her as just like a very shallow party girl, glitzy and dumb. That's what I thought. And I actually did this exercise, and like, she's actually quite brilliant in so many ways. So I was fascinated by that, and I think it's a really worthwhile exercise to do the blank slate. Take someone you have in judgment, give them a true blank slate, tell us what you learned about them that you didn't know was true before.
I love it. The stretches are so much fun and so valuable. Is there anything that you want to share with our graduates that we didn't get into in this episode? And go ahead. I'll just give you that.
Yeah, I would say this. I think something that comes up for a lot of people is a self-judgment of, I'm not experiencing what others are experiencing. I feel like everyone's happy. I'm not happy. And that's okay. You don't want to beat yourself up and go with the flow to the point where you know, if whatever your experience is yours, it's unique to you. And that's one of the cool things about going through it. Everyone has different responses to different exercises. That's why there's so many different types. And I don't want you to ever get in this place where you feel like you're doing it wrong, that something's broken about you because you're being left behind. And I think there's a lot of courage. There's courage in being honest about that. You know, one of my biggest breakthroughs came from me saying, guys, if I'm being honest, I'm not feeling any of the things you're feeling right now at all. Like nothing's happening for me, if you will, in that way. And that was literally the breakthrough moment, me taking responsibility for it, rather than just going with the flow and being like, all right, you know, go through the motions. Take the initiative and understand that, like, you're not wrong for your experience. It's the experience you're supposed to be having, and it's okay. And even this, in addition to that, for graduates that have gone through it and maybe, you know, have left it and had bad days and bad moments and found themselves going back into old habits, that's okay. Because guess what? Now you know you have the tools and the wherewithal and the know-how to shift out of it. So this isn't a case where you're perfect after you're done. That's ridiculous. There's always constant work to do for all of us, and just be accepting of yourself.
It's a series of practices. That's really what transformation is that we learn things that work for us, like you've been speaking about tonight. And it's about staying in the best practices and keeping ourselves sharp and present. And you certainly have inspired me tonight. It's so fun to hear you going backwards, and you have I know you have an incredible memory. To hear you tonight, like, you really hold on to a lot. So I guess I want to say, is there any parting words that you want to give everyone that is your favorite wisdom?
My favorite wisdom, yeah, I mean, again, I sort of spoke to it just now, but essentially it's like, I put more value in authenticity than anything else, and so does my wife. That is a prerequisite for people, for friends. She doesn't care where you're at, whether you're a hot mess, you know, you're a train wreck, as long as you're real, as long as you're authentic, and you're not caught up in living this fake Instagram life where you're perfect, right? Understand that your power comes from your vulnerability. Some may call faults weaknesses. They're not. They're not. Sharing those things is a real powerful strength. So I say, just be you. Really, be authentically you.
Thank you so much. And by the way, if people haven't been listening yet to The Mania, what are the channels that they can find it on?
Well, the Mania podcast is available on my YouTube channel at DNegsPoker. We also put clips on my Instagram at DNegsPoker. I am at Real Kid Poker on X, and it's also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. If you just type in the Mania podcast, you will find it.
Beautiful. Well, thank you again. You're always inspiring. Always appreciate you sharing your wisdom and all you do to keep transformation alive. We can't wait to have you on here again someday.
It's a pleasure as always.
We can't wait to hear about baby Negs.
We're working on it.
Yes. Thank you, Daniel.
You got it.
New episodes of EQ EQU release every Tuesday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Podbean, and ChoiceCenter.com. See you next week.